All right, fantastic, excellent. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Let's switch back to the PDF. All right. Hello, everyone. Oh, that's the wrong picture. There we go. Welcome to the Black Betterment broadcast. I'm your host, Rap Raven. This is our 121st show. So I believe, which is excellent, fantastic. You guys are here with us, and we will work together to make a good tomorrow for Black people collectively. That's nice. Before we start, we always go through our freestyle statements that I recommend people try to observe, use whenever it's necessary. And then just break it down. So when it comes to work as a collective with only Black people or matters that benefit Black issues, Black progression, and Black ownerships, Black people are collectively inadequate at this. You see, this is a problem. We're going to try to work on that. Individually, you might find non-Black person who shows some kind of corollary towards Black people. However, collectively, Black people have no friends. Very important to understand that you're going to have many non-Black individual friends when it comes to work as a collective. Unfortunately, Black people, we are on our own. So we have to be, self-determined, you see. Can't rely on others. And the most important one, of course, which you should never forget, is constructive Black man with constructive Black woman makes a constructive Black family. As we do our research, we realize how important the Black family is, Black people, Black love, and this kind of stuff. And you find out that's why you might find many situations where we haven't got our act together on that, and many people outside the community seem to contribute to not having a good, not letting us have a good foundation on that. Well, like I said, there's only so much someone else can do to you. At a certain point, you do it to yourself. So, have to make sure we're not doing things to ourselves. Now, we're going to throw out the link for people to jump in and have a fantastic conversation. And when we do, let's make sure that we practice the 4D values, which are discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. That's right. We can use these 4 things when we communicate with Black people. We will minimize anxiety, which is always good. Always good. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Also, if we could not use any derogatory language, that'd be very helpful. Just try to be constructive and all that good stuff. So some of you might be wondering, what is Black Betterment for those who are new, or some who might click on this file in a future time. Well, Black Betterment is Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. That's right. It's a lifestyle. We promote the lifestyle of Black people helping Black people on Black issues on this broadcast. And hopefully you can be influenced, add to the influence, and then eventually start on your own journey to do the same thing on your own kind of stations, media hubs and stuff. And yeah, we get a movement going of Black people who want to help Black people. Oh, we got a message. Let me check that in a sec. I'm sure it's where's the show. Nope, it's not that. Cool. All right. So, copyright disclaimer. Going to show some videos, even though we blackify them to make the algorithm change, whatever. We'll just let you know that we're using this for study purposes and not just claiming the one's copyright. Just want to do case studies so we can better ourselves, understand what's happening. Oh yeah, very good, very nice, very well. So move on. Also, don't forget to join the Black Betterment Instagram page. And don't forget to tell your friend we're live. It's very important. For those who don't know, we use this platform as a method to help Black people constructively. If you're interested in such things, you can join in, whether it's by text, listening, or jumping on the live streams. Feel free to promote this concept. Is there many concepts out there where Black people help Black people? I don't know. If there's not, let us know. We also try to come with branding ideas, concepts that can help Black people better reach Black people and be constructive. So, we see what we can do, but you're part of that team. There is no I in team and all that good stuff. So don't forget, if you're here now, share, care, and all that over there. Yeah, cool. Right. So what is today's fantastic show about? Well, did that one change? It looks like it changed. I'll update it over time. Anyway, we remember John Henrik Clarke, very important individual brother there, Pan-Africanist historian, done many good debates and lectures, very important. And unfortunately, an ancestor now, he passed away, I want to say it's the 1st of January. It's definitely, I think it's the 1st of January. And funny enough, there's a lot of brothers and sisters who are constructive, who did the works historically, who passed away in January, early January and late December. Very interesting that. But yeah, we're focusing, and we might make a more habit of now of trying to let's do a quick recap when it's the anniversary of someone's transitioning. and so and there's so many others as well we have to do. But John Henry Clarke will cover today, and we also are going to cover. We review the interactions from Shanon and Skip over Damar Hamlin's health issue. So those who don't know, in America, there's they play American football sport over there, and unfortunately, one of the brothers he just collapsed. Unfortunately, and then this triggered like a debate between these two gentlemen who have a show called Shanon and Skip, and they've got a history of they usually have this dynamic. You have a white guy, black guy talk about certain things. There's always kind of dynamic they have over there. Yeah, we've mentioned some of these brothers before, but we're just gonna look at the context of here, see if we can pull anything out and ask any questions about anything that might come up or not. We've got a few videos surrounding it. So let's see what the issue was. We'll start off that one first, then we'll move to Henry Clarke last because that's such a uplifting beat thing. So for those who don't know and those about to know, this is the footage, so I can find, of in America. There was a young brother, 24, called Damar Hamlin, and he collapsed on the field. It's not good to see. So let's see which one to play first. Let me see if I've got footage of it.
Condition after suffering.
Rewind.
Today, Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin is in critical condition after suffering cardiac arrest during the Bills-Bengals Monday Night Football game last night. The 24-year-old made a tackle in the first quarter, stood up, and then fell backwards moments later. Hamlin was given CPR for nearly 10 minutes before he was taken to a hospital where he remains sedated and in critical condition. The Bills said Hamlin's heartbeat was restored on the field before he was taken by an ambulance off the field. The game was suspended. The NFL decided to postpone it officially with no information on when or if it will be finished.
All right. So that was the unfortunate thing that happened. Next video, let's see if we can find one. This is, I guess, we're going to look at our brother. We borrowed some video from another brother who's done another case study, but we'll watch his video. A video within a video. And let's see what he has to say and stuff.
Things. Skip Bayless decided to say some things that were more than insensitive, in my opinion. But I'm going to do this. Let me first provide the context of Shannon Sharpe, who tried to help Skip, in my opinion, and then this happened. Here it is.
Good to see you, Shannon. I understand you have something you want to share this morning.
Good morning, yes.
Morning.
There's been a lot of speculation of why I wasn't on air yesterday, and I won't get into speculation or conjecture or innuendo, but I will say this. In watching that game on Monday night, what happened to Damar Hamlin struck me a little different. As a brotherhood in the NFL, when injuries happen, when we know injuries are a part of the game, I've seen guys suffer ACLs and Achilles tear, but I've never seen anybody have to be revived and fight for their life on the field. So it struck me a little differently because I remember seeing my brother paralyzed on the field temporarily, and he was able to regain focus. Skip tweeted something, and although I disagree with the tweet, and hopefully Skip would take it down, but I didn't want it.
So yeah, so I think they'll cover what he said, but it was an issue that he tweeted something insensitive, and a lot of people weren't best pleased by this. Listen.
Time out. I'm not going to take it down because I stand by what I tweeted.
Skip, let me finish.
All right. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Go ahead. Let's go, Jen.
Okay.
I mean, I cannot even get through a monologue without you interrupting me. You could have came back, Skip.
Well, I thought,
Skip, just let.
I didn't know you were going to bring up this.
I was just going to say, Skip, I didn't want to yesterday to get into a situation where Damar Hamlin was the issue. We should have been talking about him and not get into your tweet. That's what I was going to do. But you can't even let me finish my opening monologue without you interrupting.
Okay. I was under the impression you weren't going to bring this up because nobody here had a problem with that tweet.
No. Clearly, the bosses wanted you to offer explanations, so clearly somebody.
No, they did not have. Nobody.
Let's go, Jen.
Thoughts and prayers remain with Damar Hamlin.
That's where the focus should have been.
Skip done lost his damn mind. Now, I've heard Skip go back and forth with Shannon for a long time. Sometimes Skip will even see the light, change his mind, and openly say so. So let's be very clear about what Skip did.
They said this.
While a young 24-year-old black male was damn near dying in front of the world, Skip was concerned about the season, the NFL, the game, the sport.
Yeah, just to let you know that to a lot of people, it really is about the sport. The health of the athletes might not really be a concern, and there's been mentioned this before. Also, we have to talk about ownership. Like, you realize that many of these black players don't really own most of the teams and stuff. And then we did cover in the past. We covered one of the owners who was a very elderly gentleman who was married to a very young black woman, and he wasn't best pleased when she would go to the games and hang around with black people, including the teams who were playing there and some of the stars of the game. And I think an audio released of him shouting at her for doing this. So yeah, there's the interesting thing of the dynamics of how sports work. But let's carry on listening.
Not the life, not the health of the individual. Damn it, Skip, if it's not in you, you could have at least faked it. The level of insensitivity is so extreme. I don't understand how Skip doesn't get it. I really don't. It was more than inappropriate. Many try to help Skip see the light. Look at the social media thread. Shanon tried to help Skip see the light. I'm going to try to help him see the light. Now, Skip went on air the day before to offer an apology. Shanon was not there. And, well, judge for yourself. Do you think this was an apology? Here it is.
Allow me to say up front that I apologize for what we're going to set out to do here today if it offends anyone, because we're going to try to do the show pretty much as we usually do the show. But I'll admit up front, I'm still shook up by what happened last night to Damar Hamlin. In fact, I'm still wrecked. In fact, I'm not sure I'm capable of doing this show today. But after barely sleeping on it, I decided to give it a try. Maybe I'll fail, maybe we will fail, but we're going to try. We wrestled through much of the night whether to even do a show today, because it felt like in our minds, we almost can't win with this.
What kind of apology is that? That made me, okay, so first I was offended. Now I'm just mad at him. I no longer respect him. He says he's apologizing for, and I quote, what we're going to set.
All right, so we're going to skip through this solo. Let me I pressed full screen, and that's not what I want to do. There we go. Sorry about that. All right. Did I actually have the transcript? No, probably not. Oh, here we go. Wait, I just want to see what that is. Oh.
Battles. They were forced to do this. This is in face2faceafrica.com. The headline reads, how enslaved blacks beating each other to near death was a great source of entertainment and cash for white plantation owners. Now, I know some people are going to push back on me and say, oh my goodness, you're comparing Skip to a plantation owner.
Before the brother goes to do that, welcome, brother Kel. Welcome to the show.
Black Betterment, brother Raven. Interesting title, brother. This ancestor's amazing, man. Big up to you, bro. Big up, man.
Of course. Now, what I'm going to say to the viewers, with the thing we're covering with Shanon and Skip, one of the hosts, he has a history of maybe questionable behaviors, what it is. So we're just going to review that. But there was a 10 years ago, 9 years ago, he got in a disagreement with a young black brother. And the way the young black brother handled himself, I was quite best pleased with. Let's have a listen to that. Let's go back in the past.
Bro.
How good do you really believe you are? Because you got.
So we're reviewing it, for those who joined. There's an individual called Skip something. I forgot his name. He unfortunately, a young brother collapsed on the field and was taken. And they cancelled the American football match because he was in critical condition, and everyone was upset and they couldn't play on. And he wasn't. I think he wanted the game to play on, or he didn't understand. And he didn't seem to be sympathetic towards what was happening. And a lot of people weren't best pleased with his stuff. And what I was saying is that we've had a history of very confrontational behavioral patterns between himself and other black people historically. And also, there's another video I'm going to show with certain words he uses, which I want to unpack. But either way, let's listen to this old thing at the moment.
Got people out there looking at you and saying, he's just talking smack. How good do you believe you are?
Well, I believe my numbers speak for themselves. I mean, my tape speaks for itself. My tape is my resume. That's what I leave it up to. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Skip can say whatever he wants, but Skip, whenever you refer to me, whenever you speak to me, whenever you address me as All-Pro Stanford graduate, because those are some accomplishments you can aspire to, you will never accomplish. You have never accomplished anything. So, but those things are on my resume. Those are what I've done. It's my second.
There's a young NBA NFL player who the Skip gentleman used to quite heavily criticize, and this is him responding 9 years ago after the criticism of him not being good enough in the team and not playing well and this kind of stuff. This is how he responded to the gentleman.
Year in the NFL, going on my third. I mean, you tell me who's wrong.
Okay, I'll accept that. I think I've accomplished more in my field than you have in yours, though you're just getting started.
So I'm the top of my field. So I'm all pro. I'm the best, one of the best 22 players in the NFL. You're going to brush it off, but I don't think you're the best 22 anything in sports and in media and anything. I think you think more of yourself than you actually can, prove. But
okay. Do you think you're better than Darrelle Revis is right now?
In my 24 years of life, I'm better at life than you.
Okay.
So
all right, that's fair.
Let's get down to that.
Let's not get personal here. I just want to know.
It's not personal.
Do you think you're better than Darrelle Revis is right now?
I'm better than you. So I have nothing to say about him. I mean, that's pretty much done. My numbers speak for themselves.
Now you want to trash talk me, which is totally cool with me.
Actually, I'm on a campaign to do a lot of community service.
Okay, I know you are at your high school. We're going to talk about that in just a minute.
High school, speaking to high school kids.
What's your goal? Richard, what's your motive here?
To be the best NFL corner in.
Okay, but do you want to promote yourself into a bigger name, a household name, so that you can do more commercials and maybe have your own show? Is that your goal?
The first team All-Pro is my goal. I accomplished it. So now it's on to bigger and better things. Those are my goals. Those are always going to be my goals. Fine. That is perfectly fine.
All right, I'm going to go one last video before we move on. For those, we're looking at Skip Gates, and this is important because we try to extract certain things he was saying and what we came from this. This is a conversation, I think it's about him not seeing too many white people in a lot of the dominant leagues and why he likes seeing white people. Something like that. Let's have a listen.
Rising young superstar. Really, I think hands down rookie of the year pick. Sorry, John Wall. Like President Obama, Tiger Woods, Derek Jeter, he's a product of a mixed marriage. Mm-hmm. How do you, Skip Bayless, view Blake Griffin?
For 7 years on this show, for 5 years with Rob Parker, we have debated why there are so few American-bred white players in the NBA. There are 0 white American-bred stars.
They're paused to do a quote. I won't read it out. We'll pass that over. There we go.
Right.
Okay. It'd be hard to find one.
European star point out. We got.
So brothers, they're talking about why is there not too many white stuff. But what you want to realize is in the back of the mind, many non-black people, white people are aware of these kind of things, and some of them it actually is quite bothersome.
The Dirks and the Manus.
And some of them, the only kind of solace they get is as long as they own the teams and stuff, this is okay. And there's also a book, I can't remember what it was called. It was talking about historically why there were so few quarterbacks. Because a quarterback was like the leadership on the American football team. And that was one thing that a lot of white people wanted to keep university white at some point. And I think there's more quarterbacks now who are non-white, but this is historical context.
Steve Nash was close. Canadian. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So here comes Blake Griffin, who's...
You just said the great white hope there. That's because this is something that you see in many sports that dominate by black people. The longer to see a white person compete at the same kind of level.
Mother I went to high school with, tall, redheaded, white. And for the last month or so, as I watch his NBA rise, I sit back and I think, why shouldn't I, as a white person, be able to take some pride in Blake Griffin's rise because he did come from a white mom? Not that I know her or don't know her, that doesn't matter, but just it's a new, we're seeing this more and more in sports, the mixed marriage products.
That's what I want to cover. So the mixed marriage products, he's seen it more and more in sports. That's something we've observed across the world between black athletes. He's noticed it.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, interesting point.
And you guys know I'd be an NBA nut if it were all black or all gray. You know me, I'm just a nut.
Right.
But because the white players are such a tiny minority now, that, yeah, I'll be the first to admit here on national TV, yeah, I do. I take a little pride because he came from a white mother. Am I wrong for that?
No, you're not wrong.
So yeah, they go on to all this. But what I'm saying is, this is the awareness of many white people, whether they know or don't know it, or they admit they don't know it. They're very aware of the dynamics between black and white, who dominates, who owns, and many of them are not best pleased for certain situations. So no, we're just skating around looking at the scenario with brother, was it Shanon and Skip? Now, what time 20? We could listen to wasn't a little bit of what brother Umar says about the other brother, because Shanon, we've covered him before. He sometimes speaks on black issues. The guy who was there. But I think he's another one who's obviously married to a European, or was, or maybe he's married.
Yeah, he's a very tricky one, man.
Yeah, I think brother Umar covered this as well. So, like I said, you tend to find that many black people in media, as we covered, and in sports, are married to modern black women. We've got a campaign to highlight that, to try to, I guess, rectify that when it comes to economics and second generation wealth and this kind of stuff. But what's this? What they say?
Whoop! Shanon Sharp. I got to deal with Shanon. I'm sorry. I got to deal with Shanon. Shanon Sharp, you threw Kyrie under the bus, and then you walked it back. Shanon Sharp said, instead of being happy for Deion Sanders, we want to beat him down. Shanon Sharp said, when we do something good, we the last people to be happy for us. This is what he told his handler, Skip Bayless. This is what Shanon Sharp told his handler, Skip Bayless, criticizing black people before the world.
So I think the issue we might have with this individual before was speaking negatively about black institutions, and I think maybe it was the universities and the sporting universities. I think you said
Charles Snow Bunny Barkley and Shaq Uncle Sambo O'Neal. Shanon Sharp said, whenever we do something good, we the last people to be happy. Then Shanon said he didn't want to go to a black college. Shanon Sharp got on national TV with his handler, Skip Bayless, and said, I never wanted to go to Savannah State. I wanted to go to a PWI. Shanon Sharp said, I went to Savannah State because it's the only place I could go. Shanon Sharp said, I never heard of an HBCU. The only thing I heard of was the United Negro College Fund. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. This bothers me because I love my people. This bothers me because I love my people. This bothers me because I love my people. This bothers me. He got on the show with Skip Bayless and said, I never even heard of a HBCU. The only thing I knew about a HBCU was the United Negro College.
Something there. So we just did a quick intro about our second topic, which is reviewing the interaction of Shanon and Skip. We can come back to it if anyone wants to bring it up. Just anything they've picked from it. It's just the latest news that's in there about players' safety and obviously people not being concerned about some of the brothers who collapse live on TV and stuff. Well, we'll come back to that. But now we're gonna where's that thing? We're gonna go back to brother John Henry Clarke, very important brother. Has done so much work. Unfortunately passed on the 1st of January, I believe. Many years ago.
90s, isn't it? 90s.
I think it might be 98. I want to say 98. Let me Google that.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was 98 when he passed. I realize there's a lot of brothers and sisters, ancestors passing in late December, January. Yep, 98. I'm right, and it was he was so he was born on January 1st. Didn't pass. He was born on January 1st, which is what that's what we're highlighting, the birth of not the passing. And yes, it wasn't the night in unfortunately 1998 when he passed. But anyway, let's so those who don't know, what we want to do is we also want to recommend people for you to study, get their books, listen to their videos, and we'll listen, if you don't know who the brother is, we'll play some. I think I just feel he's talking about Marcus Garvey. I think I haven't heard it fully, but let's listen to anything he says. Usually generally entertaining. Let's have a listen to him, and let's have a think.
They are.
Right.
History tells of people where they have been, what they have been, where they are, and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go, what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
I wonder if this was a doc. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes.
Yes, I was going to say Wesley Snipes documentary, didn't he?
Yeah. Big up Wesley, man. Big up.
And I remember, I think I heard someone talk about how Wesley Snipes might have introduced Michael Jackson to a few
he did, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
You done your homework well, brother. Big up, man.
There you go, yeah. So I remember that. Yeah, I guess one show we got to probably do as well is I guess celebrities and sports entertainers or whatever it is who are synchronized, who had a knowledge of self or something. Obviously, Muhammad Ali and this kind of stuff. Obviously, parts of mine, but see if there's any others. And also, when did it change where the culture of kind of liberation and this kind of stuff and knowledge then became the opposite? Really, I would say 90s, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, but now you're right. Unfortunately, the hip hop era changed that. Unfortunately.
Yeah. And we're gonna track that to see if we can see this, because there was a rapper called, now I should know his name off head, but he was he from one of the I forgot his name. He's from it'll then come to me, but the group he's from, he was talking in an interview, which I'll see if I can get for a future time. We're talking about how rappers would come to labels with like conscious bars and they wouldn't get signed, and then they'll tell them, oh, we're only going to put out certain gangster kind of rap and this kind of stuff. And then it became very economic that if a person wanted to get their records played or signed, they had to have this kind of like gangster image or whatever it might be, because that's what they were pushing. So yeah,
Brand Nubia.
Is it Poor Righteous Teachers? It might be. I think it's Poor Righteous. Let me check out Poor Righteous Teachers. Poor Righteous. Hold on. Teachers. There we go. Yes. It might be Wise Intelligent. Yes. Wise. So the rapper. So guys, let's see if I can find it on it. I'm not gonna play it now. Let's see if I can find it. I'll download it another time maybe when we listen to what Henrik Clarke. But let's Wise Intelligent Industry. Not 5% Nation. He's talking about Poor Righteous Teachers. I'll look for that in the meanwhile. But meanwhile, we'll listen to more John Henrik Clarke.
Yeah.
Hold on, there we go. Similar to the Betterment broadcasting truck. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was meant to be. It looks like it was meant to be.
There's something about an island, a body of water. It creates a special kind of dreamer, because they did not know where they came from in Africa. They dreamed of the whole of it. Bring it all together in one piece.
The seeds of Pan-Africanism planted in the United States during slavery years, later flourish in the fertile soil of the British West Indies.
Trinidad produced the three greatest Pan-Africanists, H. Sylvester Williams, C.L.R. James, and George Padmore. In Trinidad, they found the Pan-African League. H. Sylvester Williams would eventually call it Pan-African. He would call a conference in London in 1900. A few scattered Africans, a few people from the Caribbean, W. Du Bois from the United States. They did not ask for the independence of African states then. They asked for preparation. Give us the kind of education that will prepare us for eventual independence. They were reasonable, but they weren't listened to. And yet the conference made some kind of impression. After the first Congress, Du Bois would be the leading light from the second through fourth. But the most meaningful, the one that Du Bois called in Paris, as a result of this Congress, Du Bois came to center stage as the leader and theoretician of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism wasn't exactly new because Black Americans were practicing it long before someone gave it a name. The African settlement movement, the movement that settled Liberia, was in form of Pan-African movement. So-called Negro Convention movement was most a discussion of how you bring the African world together. That whole 19th century was Pan-African thought. Prince Hall, his development of the Black Masonic order that he called the African Lodge, the search for a place in Africa for settlement by Martin Delany and Robert Campbell. 1829, David Walker's appeal to the colored people of the world was basically a Pan-African appeal. All of this, before we come down to the end of the 19th century. The ultimate Pan-Africanist, of course, was the Jamaican Marcus Garvey.
Citizens of Africa, I greet you in the name of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World. You may ask, what organization is that? It is for me to inform you that the Universal Negro Improvement Association is an organization that seeks to unite into one solid body the 400 million Negroes of the world.
It was soon after the end of World War I. The Secretary of War had told the Black American soldiers that their lot would not be appreciably changed by virtue of the fact that they fought in the war. There had been an investigation. It was discovered that many of the nurses wouldn't treat black soldiers in the hospital, wouldn't even touch them. Some of them died as a result. So you have these grievances pent up in the veterans.
We have to really look at the history of, because that's very consistent with the concept of when black people were fighting, when the Europeans were fighting amongst themselves between Nazis and English and British and American, this kind of stuff. What would happen is they wouldn't allow black people who were fighting on behalf of the British to have guns in the First World War because they didn't want them to kill white Germans or white Nazis. This is something we should be covering, as well as obviously that when the Nazis were captured, they were allowed to travel with the Europeans in like the first class train, while the blacks had to go in the back of the trains, as well as in the mess halls. I remember Brother Cullen was talking this, where he said in the mess halls they had to eat, black people had to eat on their own, while the Nazis who were captured and the white people ate together at a separate place. So this is the thing about certain like getting on code, where there's this systematic way to, even though they have disagreements, they still have a hierarchy, and they still know how to like use black people to still maintain like a power structure or whatever. And obviously, what I was talking about, even when it comes to like fighting for the Europeans to live the way they want to live, allegedly, but yet when they get hit in this, they're not even being treated. these are very important things we have to brandish and highlight. Like there has to be a collection of all this kind of stuff, just so the patterns and how times change, but the patterns doesn't really change. Just develops a different methods of control, and the outcome still seems to be the same. That black people are not really controlling much of anything. But yeah, let's carry on listening for a bit.
Coming home. All of this came to a head in 1919 when there were riots all over the United States. That's called the Red Summer. Marcus Garvey could point out, look, they don't want you here. Let's go back home. Let's go to Africa. Go back to Africa. Let's not only go back to Africa, let's go back in our own ships. Now, a whole lot of people who otherwise would not listen, now willing to listen.
We hear the cry of France for the Frenchmen, of Germany for the Germans, of Ireland for the Irish, of Japan for the Japanese. We of the Universal Negro Movement Association are raising the cry of Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad.
He began to dream the great dream and rescue the mind of millions of black people.
Oops, can we go back? Oopsie daisy. What was that? I was going to say Marcus Garvey, very important figure.
Rescue the mind of millions.
Show on brother Marcus Garvey, and one of the most important in Black history for what he achieved and what he tried to achieve. Obviously, the amount of sabotages that was sent his way, and you always have to ask a question. Whenever non-black people don't promote certain people who put the work in, that's a testament of how good they were and how much they did.
Right.
You know, not to undermine any brothers and sisters who are heavily promoted by dominant society, but generally, whenever you have someone who's right on the right path, they'll never be mentioned ever. So you can use it as your kind of guide to see who's actually doing the right thing. And I would say that Marcus Garvey has never been mentioned ever, unless he's trying to undermine, right? Which shows you he did amazing things, and definitely have to maintain the work he does and uphold. A very important individual, very important. Where are we? So let's play it for
millions of black Americans from depression and self-doubt. By 1923, he was in some difficulty with the boats and some of the people he had hired to run the boats. Terrible mismanagement and betrayal. He collected millions of dollars from black Americans to buy these boats, and these boats were old and not as seaworthy as he thought they were. Garvey moved over large territory, maybe too fast, and yet he built the largest movement in black America before or since. There needs to be a reassessment of Marcus Garvey and his long-reaching effects. He called attention to what slavery and colonialism had taken away. They took away a concept essential to all the people in the world. They took away the concept of state management and state maintenance. Once you are taken from the geography of your origin and forced to live in a state designed by others, you're still the slave to the man who's astute enough to control a container called the state.
We have John Henrik Clarke there. If any brothers and sisters in the forums are listening, have anything they want to add to John Henrik Clarke, let us know. Funny enough, we were talking about how music people would like. We're looking at the documentary we just played there, and we assumed it was done by Wesley Snipes. It was the same one. And we're talking about rappers and sports guys when they were more consciously aware. And we mentioned some rappers who might be more conscious in the States. But I tried to download one whose name was Wise Intelligent. Let's see if it downloaded. Hold on. Was it modified? See if it says anything about the industry. Where is this thing? Okay, nope, that's not right. Oh, yes, I think it's one of these ones over.
1832.
This is this. We'll see what he's talking about. This is the rapper we're talking about.
Two Nat Turner insurrections, killed a bunch of slave owners. They sent us over 1,000.
It's good to hear rappers or sport athletes actually know history and talk about it.
Christian missionaries into the South, into all the churches to regulate what Negro spirituals could or could not be saying, because they felt that the music was influencing the rebellions. So they censored the music. It's just what they do. You know what I mean? And it's been going on, consistently. And, immediately following Rodney King, the Rodney King riots, that's when they shift the paradigm from culturally aware or black awareness music, as you would call it, to this new paradigm of money, hoes, clothes, party, and bullshit. That's just what it is. That's just what it is. And I have a book that I'm about to have published that I've written. It's called 3/5 an MC: The Manufacturing of a Dumbed Down Rapper, and it's explaining how we got here. The rapper that we see, the pussy popping and the money, hoes, clothes, and the balling out, buying out the bar. This rapper, he was created. He's created. It's not something that a rapper just said one day, you know what? I'm just gonna rhyme about whores all day long. I'm just gonna rhyme about crack dealing all day long. I'm just gonna rhyme about gang banging all day long. It's not what happened. An article was just released, an interview with Hip Hop DX with Too Short. With Too Short says that the label, I think it was Barry Weiss, he said the top executive at Jive Records said to him, yo, just make a record with all pussy songs on it. You know what I mean? And Too Short said, yo, if I do that, I'm gonna have to put a record out to follow that with all conscious records on it, like Life is Too Short, In the Ghetto, and songs like that he was writing. That were socially relative records. They agreed. They said okay. But when he put out the Pussy record, they reneged on the record that he submitted next. They said no, we're not going to do it. And from then on, it was just a paradigm shift across the board.
To see more interviews from your face.
Interesting. We're going to one more video. This is from a rapper called Wise Intelligent. We like to do things on the fly here, so we just said, what is that thing? They said, yeah, let's see if we can download on the fly. I've got one more from this bro. It's another short one. I think he's in a conference or something. Let's see. Don't know what it's about. This is the Nation of Islam will do once a year for Savior's Day.
A guy named
he must have been invited, or maybe he's part of the nation. I don't know.
David Weiner called me and asked me. He said, for the next album that you turning in, is you gonna be killing a little bit in there, It's gonna be a little bit more dope dealing, because that was some of the stuff you was talking about when we first heard you. And I told him, I said, man, I'm a member of the Nation of Islam.
Let me speed up. There we go. There we go. I think this is his segment. So yeah, Wise Intelligent, Poor Righteous Teachers, Influence of Islam Hip Hop. I think that's
environment in which we are embedded as young black males and females in this particular society. Hip hop changing from positive to negative was not a consequence of history. It was not a circumstance of history. It was nothing that just happened on its own. It had nothing to do with the changing of the times. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the fact that there are people in this particular society who wants to see us exactly where we are. And we cannot let that point elude us. These are the facts. How do we know? 1967, Kerner Commission report on urban disorder, when black people said, yo, we're tired of this system. You know what I mean? This system is oppressing us. So we rebelled against the system.
Big up Sister Kushti. And big up Brother IC3.
We burned things. We said, yo.
Black Betterment, Black Betterment.
Big up IC. Big up Elder.
There's a question from the thing. The rapper is a rapper called Wise Intelligent. He's from a group known as get the spelling right. The Poor Righteous Teachers. They had a run from 1989 to 1996. So they were there. They were seeing the change happen. They had a very Pan-African Nation of Islam influence and 5% Nation on their records, as well as I think they might even have a big Jamaican influence as well. I want to say maybe they were either influenced by Jamaican culture or they might be from Jamaica. Some of them, I don't know. If I can remember, I just a lot from that time. And then he's talking at one of the conferences. But what we try is highlight rappers out there who and artists and sports athletes who are aware, because like I said, you're not going to hear them. Funny enough, randomly just to just to cut away for a bit. I was obviously on Instagram, and there was a gangster rapper, not a gangster rapper. There was a street rapper from the UK, I assume, and I think he wasn't best pleased because apparently there's an actor in EastEnders who might be getting some kind of buzz because he's making what they call, like, I don't know, drill rap or simulation, emulation drill rap or whatever, I don't know. And he's like, oh, I've been to jail for 10 years, and I've sold this, and I've done this, and I've done that, and this guy comes, he's an actor, and he's getting more popular than I am. And he goes, yeah, man, the music industry's messed up. I thought, oh, well, the fact he said music industry, it's interesting because when you talk about industry, you're talking about, like, executives, you're talking about distribution and this kind of stuff, and promotion and marketing. And ultimately, not that I'm here to promote any kind of negative whatever, but if you want your stuff to get, you have to create your own industry, mate, innit? You got to think that a lot of this stuff is made by non-black people for non-black people, and executives by non-black people. So if you really want to promote your stuff, you kind of have to create your own industry. That was an algorithm I saw yesterday. Well, let's go back to the wise, intelligent speaking of.
We had enough. He did his little report on what caused these riots. He said, what caused these riots? He said it was young children who started these riots, and what was motivating them was a high self-esteem and an enhanced racial pride. He said the majority of the rioters were high school dropouts, but they had a higher political orientation than their peers who did not drop out. And they saw the system as their enemy, so they attacked it in the right circumstance. So fast forward to 1992. Same thing. #1 record on the radio. We had Fight the Power. Fight the Power is on the radio. Rodney King gets beaten before the world. The black youth rebelled against the system. Again, they did it again. And why? What primed them? Positive hip hop. Primed them. Fight the Power. X-Clan. Brand Nubian. You had these groups out here who were politically orienting black kids in the right direction, giving them the proper prompters that they needed so that they can respond properly to oppression. All right? In 1967, when the riots happened, he saw that the self-esteem and the racial pride was fueling this. So he said, how do I bring that down so that they will not riot? And what he did, he flooded the airways with black exploitation movies. Nigga Charlie and the Return of Nigga Charlie. These were movies. Hip hop didn't start calling people niggas. We had Shaft. We had Coffee. Black girl turned prostitute to do whatever. You know what I mean? But these black exploitation movies brought down the self-esteem and the racial pride so that the kids will.
We'll have to cover the black exploitation. I mean, it is a lot of fun to watch black exploitation films in a retrospective way, and the fact that it was a lot of, I guess, black people, are finally getting some kind of video time or whatever. But we do have to tackle the prominent theme that was in a lot of these things that they sold, and could it have been done better? Who controlled it ultimately, and where are the people today who did a lot of these films? So let's see.
Not rebel against this system of oppression. 92. The racial pride was back in effect. We had black kids going to Dr. Ben Yuckinen lectures. We were spending our money to go see Farrakhan speak as opposed to going to a strip club. This is where we were. The most coveted article of clothing was a historically black college or university sweater. We were motivating children towards positive attitudes and lifestyles. And when Rodney King got the beating, heads responded properly. Fast forward to our day. Sean Bell is shot 50 times in the street in New York by police officers. #1 song on the radio, Like a Lollipop. Nobody do nothing. Nobody respond to nothing. Trust me. Just like the brother, I believe it was JT, the bigger figure, who said that the label executives came to him and said, yo, brother, we need you talking about guns and whores. You know what I mean?
That's right.
That happens. I've been in those meetings with management and had to ask me, is what you're saying really what you believe, so that we'll know how to market you properly? You know what I mean? This happens. Young Buck on his album. He has a song on his album that talks about police terrorism. The label said absolutely not. Jimmy Iovine said absolutely not. You cannot put that record on the album because it might create an atmosphere that might put police officers' lives in danger. Right. So they took the record off, but they let him keep the other 14 songs on the album that talked about killing black youth. So this is what
very interesting things to be aware of.
We're not dealing with.
And that's the thing. Sometimes we're unaware in the music, like we're so conditioned for self-destruction and stuff that you always feel when you start realizing maybe the Jewish community, the police community, and other communities who are blocking any kind of negative element going towards their side. Obviously, going towards the black side, it can flow very freely.
A circumstance or consequence of history. You know what I mean? The environment that we're embedded in puts us in a situation where we feel we have to maneuver and play the game and water our message down. You know what I mean? But no, what happened was they intentionally shifted the paradigm to get us exactly where we are right now. Right now, we're feeding the prison industrial complex right now. Our kids are going to prison because they're promoting these records. They're promoting these records daily that send us to jail. You know what I mean? It's cool to go to jail. You know what I mean? They glorifying these things. And it's not the black youth. We're in a position where we get, like the brother said, the choice. You know, he said, yo, I chose the positive. So I didn't do it. But every youth is not going to take that route. I know I come from the projects. Grew up in the projects all my life. You know what I mean? And we're not turning down $500,000 to say nigga. We're not going to do it because we won't turn down $200 to take a package of crack from one corner to the next. You know what I mean? We living in a state of poverty and want of all things. So it's hard for us to make that. Our judgment is clouded. And they knew that the judgment would be even more clouded if they took groups like X-Clan off the radio. This.
All right, so there. All right. So now let's open it up. Welcome back. Welcome, brother IC3 and brother Kel. Black Betterment to both.
Black Betterment, brother. Black Betterment.
Message
Black
from,
Betterment, yes, Black Betterment.
Message from Kushti. People forget it is orchestrated. Yes, there's much orchestration going on towards self-destruction. And there also was a lot of video. We played a few in the past of rappers come together and trying to rap about, like, get the biggest superstars to rap about some of the problems. Even the R&B guys as well did it. We should play some of that more often. But yeah, maybe we can get later, like a trend going with it. The latest rappers, you know, have tried to contribute to a conscious record. But we, like I said, we are segueing. We did start two things, but the main thing is we are remembering John Henrik Clarke and his history that he showed us. So
I like what I just came in and heard the clip where he said black people were the first move was that they were setting up a conference to start to plan for release, something like that. Did you catch that bit? How black people should be so the purpose of the conference was to plan for release from the system. Did you catch that bit from what he was saying?
Yeah, towards the end. Was it towards the end or the middle? I think.
Could you rewind that little bit and just? He says the purpose, the first conference.
New Jersey MC.
Is this one? No, that's the poor teach. Let's see if we can find it. Oh, there's so many videos open. It's not that one. Open today. I'm gonna say it must be this one.
Henrik Clarke was saying.
There we go.
The first
1800.
Do you know roughly where it was?
End of the 19th century. The ultimate Pan-African.
What was it? When?
No, before Marcus Garvey. Yeah.
Okay, let's start here. Let's see what he's
In Africa, they dreamed of the whole of it, bring it all together in one piece.
The seeds of Pan-Africanism, planted in the United States during slavery years, later flourish in the fertile soil of the British West Indies.
Trinidad.
Oh no, before that, before that, before that.
Pan-Africanism.
Okay.
Yeah, a bit before that.
Well, this is the
Oh.
intro. So.
Oh right, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, this is him talking in the intro.
Most important, history tells a people where they still must go, what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
That's the. And it goes on a bit, and then.
Liberia was informal Pan-African.
It might be right about here. Let's check.
Yeah.
Pan-Africanism. Paris.
So this way he's talking about the network and stuff.
For eventual independence. They were
Oh, that's it. That bit there, just before there.
Okay, let's go back a bit.
Was from the
There
United
it is.
States.
You got it there, just there.
They did not ask for the independence of African states then.
Let's go back to Marvin.
You would call a conference in London in 1900.
Let's go back.
Yeah, that is it. That is it.
In
Call the
Trinidad,
conference. Now listen, I want you to listen carefully to that bit. Call the conference in London, right? Then listen to what he says about this. Go on.
H. Sylvester Williams would eventually call it Pan-African. He would call a conference in London in 1900. A few scattered Africans, a few people from the Caribbean, W. Du Bois from the United States. They did not ask for the independence of African states then. They asked for
Pause that bit there. Pause it there.
preparation.
Hold it. They didn't ask. He says when they called the conference, the conference they planned. They did not ask for independence at that point. So the conference is just laying the ground. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to present to you. Continue. Yeah. This is brilliant.
Let's get that back. There we go, and play.
Education that will prepare us for eventual independence. They were reasonable, but they wasn't listened to, and yet the conference made some kind of.
So a separate audio playing.
Impression. After the first Congress, Du Bois would be the leading light from the second through fourth. But the most meaningful, the one that Du Bois called in Paris, as a result of this Congress, Du Bois came to center stage as the leader and theoretician of Pan-Africanism.
Okay, could you hold that point there? Hold that point there.
Pan-Africanism wasn't
Well,
Yeah,
no! Whoops. This.
So watch this.
It was the kind of education.
Yeah. So you're saying I lost the thing.
The conference made.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that I put in the side chat there, the private side chat, that there's a petition. So I started a petition.
Okay.
And the petition, if you click on the link, there's one YouTube and there's the actual petition itself. But if you click on the YouTube one, you'll see what it's about. So the strategy is that just like the Jews got their homeland for the Jews, what they did, they wrote a letter to the British government asking that the British government view with favor the establishment of a homeland for the Jews. See, watch the language. Watch the language. So they wanted the British government to view with favor the establishment of a homeland for the Jews. That's all. Just like Henrik Clarke was saying, what they did, and so the British government wrote back to Rothschild, Lord Rothschild, and says that we view with favor the establishment of a homeland for the Jews. So just by having that document saying, oh, the British government views with favor the establishment of a homeland for the Jews got this document now. They can go and start setting up Israel as a homeland. And if anybody went against the Jews would wave the piece of paper and say, well, if you go against us, you're going up against the British government because they view with favor us. You see the move? Very, very, very clever. So they didn't ask the British government for money. They didn't ask anything. All they said, just a letter to say that you view with favor. So that model, I'm trying to working to apply it to black people and mixed black people on the subject of reparations. So this petition that you see in the side chat, the links there, the petition is based on to petition the British government to view with favor the establishment of an umbrella organization to seek reparations. Seek it. Can you see? So we're not asking for reparations. All it is, just like what Henry Clarke was saying, we want to see if the British government views with favor that justice should be served to black and mixed black people on the issue of reparations. That's all. So if that petition, we get enough support for that petition, then we'll get that document that views with favor the establishment of an organization. So it's pre-organization. It's not that we're an organization and then we're saying, oh, can you support us? No, there is no organization yet. It's just a ghost. But we want them to view with favor such a thing as an organization that seeks and looks into and researches the concept of reparations. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. I see how you connected it to what happened in Israel. Interesting.
Yes. And then connects also to what Henry Clarke's saying, that the first move, they weren't asking for states.
Yes.
See, that's what he just said.
I think the first request they had was they want education.
That's it. You see, so the education goes with research. So we want education on how to effectively get reparations and apply for reparations and to work out what reparations should be. So that's the kind of education we need. You know, the education is an investigation into how reparation justice will be served. So for justice to be served, for reparations to be served, right, you have to do some investigation and get some facts, get some evidence, research into material, get some books and so on. And it has to be, so the government must view with favor that kind of research. So we're not asking for reparations. We're asking that the government views with favor our aspiration to look into reparations.
Interesting strategy there, my brother. IC3.
Yeah. So if you like what's there, you can share it in the chat.
I've put it into the form so you guys can check out what brother IC was talking about. Have a sneak. Meanwhile, I think I've downloaded something else. So, anything you had to add, brother Kel, while I try to get this video up?
Yeah, just the way how he organizes his talks, especially when there's loads amount of people. He's a great historian. It could be very intimidating for the one who's calling or explaining to the people to incorporate history in a political way without getting sidetracked by non-Africans who may disrupt or cause confusion. So he was very he had a good his level of acute of controlling his nerves and explain was very. I learned a lot from Dr. John Henry Clarke, man. I mean, especially that one in the 90s when he was dealing with the European historians and how he explained you know, the enslavement of the Arabs and the Europeans. You know, everything was composed, organized, and executed well. So definitely he will be remembered of that, man. Organizing a lecture under pressure.
There's a video I might try to find where I saw it not too long ago. Well, I saw it years ago, but I saw it recently again. Where you know, the famous quote, he says, we probably said it a lot of times, but the first time I saw it, where it says, how do I get? It's I teach. Oh, my mind's gone blank. I debate my equals, or others
That's
I
right.
teach.
I remember that
Yeah. Where he said it, yeah. He said it
Yeah.
at an interesting debate. Yeah. It was him and a sister, and they're debating I think some kind of European something scholar or something, I don't know, and I think they were questioning the questions they were given, because they said, well, how come you're funded by like a Ku Klux Klan member or organization or something? I think what they're trying to discredit all the information where they said black people built stuff.
Yeah.
They were very displeased about this, and so if I can find out download it, but it shows you how psychologically they think, in a sense of how to keep people down. You must separate them from history, separate them from anything constructive or marvelous or grand, and how it's a very effective tool, very effective tool. And it was one of his debates I saw. Let's see if I can. I'll open up wide up for the one, but
Could you share the explanation I put as well? The explanation, because the petition that's the link for the petition, but people might not know what the explanation is. They might not know what it's about.
And this you mean the please sign petition one?
That's right. Yeah.
Let me, guys. So probably I see free. He's this process. I'm gonna put in again. So I have a sneak peek on a critique of that. It's now. Where's it gone? Please sign. Is it? Is it not? Okay.
No. See the other one, the YouTube. There's a YouTube link to the.
Let me check. Hold on. You mean
there's two links. There's one link for the petition, and the other link, the other YouTube link is for it's two links. There's two links. Yeah, one's explanation of
family. Here's a video for the explanation in video form.
That's it.
While you're looking at that, you can hear in the background one of Brother John Henry Clarke's debates. The show. Let's see, show number 221. Let's see which one is it. This one? No, it's not that one. Is it this one? Let's see what this is. This looks like it's from the past. Let's have a sneak peek. You have one as well. Nice little intro. It's called a black paper on white racism. Look at this.
Good evening. This week and next, we will present a black paper on white racism.
We definitely want to get more of these kind of productions back. This kind of stuff. Yeah. Definitely.
Frequently, the definition and effects of racism are greatly misunderstood. Certainly, the impact on blacks can only be described by us. An operational definition of individual racism is subordination of a person or group because of race. But we will focus on the institutional practice of racism, when a group is subordinated by factors indirectly related to race. An example would be a union with all white members. You can only get in the union if a member sponsors you, and automatically whites select one another. So this pattern of selection automatically keeps blacks out. The union is white in the first place because its membership reflects the leftover patterns of slavery. Therefore, racist behavior is both intentional and unintentional. Our institutions mostly involve unsuspecting individuals who are part of a racist pattern. All definitions of black people's standards and values have been defined by whites in a society basically European. As simple as it may seem, we have never made any definition of our condition, beauty standards, social etiquette. Even our names have been given us by white culture. To make an authoritative statement of our concept of Christianity, history, education, values and culture, war, colonialism and imperialism, and psychological development, and how these institutions operate in a white racist society, 6 black scholars and philosophers have been invited to present positions and analyses of these topics. With me tonight are John Henrik Clarke, an associate professor of African and Afro-American history at Hunter College in New York. Mr. Clarke is also author of 11 books, including Harlem, USA. Preston Wilcox, head of the Education Workshop of the Congress of African People, is president of AFRAM Associates, a black educational consultant firm, and is an outstanding author. Reverend Albert Clegg is pastor of the Shrine of the Black Madonna in Detroit, Michigan, and an advocate of black Christian nationalism. He is author of a soon-to-be-published book, Black Christian Nationalism, New Directions for the Black Church. Brother Clarke?
I'd like to begin by establishing some kind of a frame of reference. Exactly what are we talking about? And I think in order to do this, I'm going to try to dismiss the subject, then come back to it and deal with it. There is no such thing as a race. Nature created no races. Man created races, racial classifications, and he had his own reason for doing it. Now, who benefited from this artificial creation at first? Who benefits from it now? Now, let's look at the historical roots of this whole thing, and you're not going to understand it until you understand the implications, the far-reaching effects of the opening up of the so-called New World, Christopher Columbus and other thugs coming, suppressing the Indians, and finding a justification for this kind of thing. Let's look at Europe in the 15th and the 16th century, because racism has its roots in that second rise of Europe in the 15th and the 16th century. They had to justify what they were going to do to most of mankind. They were about to take over the whole world. Now, there's a myth about an argument about whether the world was round or flat. That's an old wives' tale. The European had gained enough knowledge and had enough guns, and he had been hungry enough within the body of Europe until he decided that he was going to go out and take the world, be it round or flat. Now, in order to understand the religious basis of racism, we have to go back to a papal bull that the Pope issued in 1455 in an argument between Portugal and Spain. He turned to them impatiently and said, "You are both authorized to reduce to servitude all infidel people." And it just so happens that most of the so-called infidels were non-European people, non-white people. Europe not only had its basis for racism, it had its basis for the slave trade, and this same basis would be good in the colonial system that followed. Racism was created to justify the slave trade, to justify the colonial system, and to justify the utter ruthlessness that had to go into the making of modern capitalism.
Brother Wilcox?
Let me begin by suggesting that the clearest evidence of racism in education is the essential control over black education, both in so-called integrated settings and in segregated settings.
Family just joined us
by
now.
white
We're
people.
looking at the history of our brother John Henry Clarke. He just did a nice setup there. Let's see if there's any other. Obviously, the two other brothers have got great points, but we're focusing on John Henry Clarke and his demeanor and he's debating. We're going to look at one more. This is good stuff. If you go to YouTube and type his name, John Henry Clarke, I shall pull it in. Well, just copy and paste the thing, whatever. But I'll put it in there anyway. Copy and paste is definitely do your research on this brother. I'm down on some other stuff if we get time. If it takes them, there you go. Let's look at. I think I've got one video of him when he was younger. Funny enough, you don't see too much of that. let's see.
I'm sure he was the apprentice of Malcolm X as well, you know.
Yeah.
Now called Negroes are the most and the least understood of the world's people.
This term Negro demoralizes us and is it detrimental. I feel it doesn't give us any association past the slave ship.
I think that the first task of people of African descent, whether in the United States or in Africa or elsewhere, is to get rid of this slave named Negro.
This curious word Negro was seldom or never used in Africa itself. And this word has no meaning, or no worthwhile meaning at all, in Africa. I would doubt myself if it has any useful meaning anywhere else.
What is a Negro? A simple question, but the answer is not so simple.
The thing with the heritage of the Negro.
My name is Ossie Davis. I'm an actor and a writer, and the narrator of our series of programs on the history of the Negro people. I'm also a Negro. What is a Negro? In Africa, the word Negro has no meaning. In Brazil, a Negro is a man who's very poor and very black. And in the United States, a man who has any quantity of Negro blood, or whatever that is considered a Negro.
Are Negroes a race, a people, or a condition? Our programs will be asking this question in many ways and in many different settings. Our odyssey will take us throughout the world to Africa, where we will explore the relationship of American Negroes to the land of their origin. To Brazil, where we will ask, is Brazil a racial paradise? And throughout the United States.
For those of you, we've been covering Brazil historically, week to week. We were covering the concept of racial whitening that was introduced. And when they talk about paradise, they are talking about the paradise of black people not existing anymore and becoming one entire white nation after a few generations. So that's where that comes from. And they used to promote that in the magazines about the paradise of Brazil, this kind of thing.
Our aim in this series is both a modest and an ambitious one. We will be asking many questions and perhaps answer only a few. For there is a vast ignorance of Negro history among whites and Negroes, and the job of filling this vacuum is massive. Do Negroes have a heritage and a tradition like the Greeks, the French, the Anglo-Saxons? Or are we something less, as others have portrayed us? Everywhere we have looked, we have seen Negroes as savage and barbaric, humble and self-sacrificing, scared and childish and inferior. And I remember as a kid coming from some of the pictures, and we spent the whole time from the motion picture house to home satirizing the Negro performances we saw in the film. Well, it was also an admission that somehow or other this was, to some degree, what we were. Now, these important and very, very
So an interesting show. So we should. I haven't seen this one, but it's interesting when you see things that parallel today and yesterday.
impressionistic things that we got from these films did, to some degree, govern our behavior. When a Negro child goes into a movie, for instance, and sees himself or sees another Negro in an unfavorable light, he feels, to some degree, threatened. He feels uncomfortable, and a great deal of his laughing at that situation will be the kind of laughter that protects him. It's a nervous attack against him, himself, the way he looks at himself. the esteem with which he holds himself and how he will rate with his fellows in the streets. You know, it's seeing something happen to you that you can't control, which leaves a scar, which leaves you feeling inadequate. You know, you don't feel loved.
Very important word there.
You're ashamed to look at yourself, ashamed to go home, ashamed to talk to the boys next door, ashamed even to ask these questions of your parents, although sometimes you do. It's a horrible situation, and sometimes we never get over that.
As a Negro, I honestly tried to believe that I was somebody, and I've always fought during my life to keep that feeling that I did have some value. And I say value knowing what that word means. And there's been many a night in my life when I went to sleep and known very deep inside me that I really wasn't worth much.
I still do not really know what being a Negro is or what it means. It means that my skin is a little bit darker. It means that my cultural exposures have been somewhat different to other ethnic groups. It may even mean that as a human being, I might be more sensitive to need and despair.
Oh, yes, you know, that wish I was white kind of thing, when you begin to sort of get the feeling of difference, like maybe you're dirty, something's wrong. But there was that feeling, you know, so early you can't even remember where it started. I'm not over it yet. It's part of my American heritage.
We were told we were a people without a past and without a future. And Negro boys and girls learned before very long that they were something special.
You know, at an early age, as soon as you start school, you begin to catch on to the whole racial thing. But once you get into school, you begin to know it and know there's a difference and that the difference is against you.
There's no real reference to me as a Negro or to my father or any of the other Negroes who have contributed so much to the growth of the United States. And I really can't understand it.
I'll never forget the picture in the geography book of a couple of very ragged Africans, you know. Weeks before we got to the lesson, we were steeling ourselves for it. Some Negro child would find the picture first in the book before we got to the lesson and alert everyone. Look on page 22, you see what's there. And then we dreaded reaching that lesson because it was always something about the savages not knowing anything, and we had to sit.
Interesting there, you see propaganda going there where they're in this integrated schools, and then there's a conscious fear that they're going to read some kind of document, some book, some kind of whatever it is, educational piece, and there's propaganda in there about Africans, black people, Negroes, and obviously this is creating a self-esteem issue amongst the students, but they all seem to be on cold to knowing and how to deal with it, prepared for it, I should say, at least. Very interesting. It's very good to check these historical documents and videos just to show you how optics and media play into self-esteem and how many challenges you face today could be from that, but there's an unawareness because of some people you accept it and it completely bombards you. And when you ask the question, why so many black people maybe not motivated to practice black betterment, practice black love, black economics, this kind of stuff, you know, that you understand that a condition could happen, as we were talking about the music influence and how there was a kind of influence drawing a constructive reaction to negative realities and making people more docile and more self-destructive, and how that plays in the hands of anti-black racism, non-black people. And this is the historical of how black people had to deal with certain things. It's interesting how there's this connection and stuff.
There and hear this, and instinctively the white children would turn and look at the Negro children, you know, while this lesson was going on.
And so Africa became our shame and our torment. We were told that our past was barbarism and the white man our redeemer. Slavery was a sin, but salvation. Few of us had anything to look forward to. We were afraid to look back. In 1958, Lorraine Hansberry wrote a play, A Raisin in the Sun, that showed the conflicts created for American Negroes by their African past.
Well, what have we got tonight? You are now looking at what a well-dressed Nigerian woman would wear. Isn't that beautiful?
Hey, look, honey, we're going to the theater. We're not going to be in it, you know.
George, I don't like that. Do you expect this boy to go out with you looking like that? Well, now, that's up to George, if he's ashamed of his heritage.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
So this, although this drama was made, but this documentary was made in 1965. That's a year after in America they did the what's it? 1964. What's the word called? I'm bad. What's it? The Voting Act. What's I should not have heard, but it's too late. But yeah, in 1964. There's a whole lot of documents, documentary that came out after 1964 in America that had some kind of like consciousness around it. And this must be one of them. But this actual film there, basically this woman in a Nigerian robe, when this was made.
Here we go again. A lecture on our African past, on our great West African heritage. In 1 second, we're going to hear all about the great Ashanti empires, the Songhai civilizations, the sculpture of Benin, some poems in the Bantu, and then the whole monologue is going to end up with the word heritage. Let's face it, baby, your heritage ain't nothing but a bunch of raggedy spirituals in some grass huts.
Grass huts? Oh, you see, George, you think you would rather stand there in your splendid ignorance and know absolutely nothing about the people who were the first to smelt iron on the face of this earth while the Ashantis were performing surgical operations. When the
Wait, this is an interesting show. What is it? I just find out what this show is, where it was made. This drama. I don't know what it is. I've never come across it before.
English were still tattooing themselves with blue dragons.
At the Heritage Program of How You Act, a federally sponsored effort to develop better opportunities for Harlem's Negro youth, a new version of African history is being taught. Robert Moore is a visiting lecturer.
Mr. Moore, do you think that the so-called Negro would dignify his identity by associating himself with his ancestral background from Africa?
After some 300 or 400 years of transplantation from Africa into America, it is obvious that we are not Africans anymore. We are Afro-Americans, Americans of African ancestry, and that connects us basically with our original heritage and culture.
The accomplishments of Africa.
Here's Henrik Clarke. We're originally watching the video to see him. He's for many decades. He passed unfortunately in 1998. I was born on January 1st, but for many generations he's been teaching history and using it as a way to empower Africans, black people. And we're watching some of his early videos to which he's in the history of the Negro people in 1965, this looks like.
Before and after
Director of the program is John Henrik Clarke.
This accomplishment is generally glossed over or neglected in human history. A lot of the misconception of Africa and the distortion of African history is involved in a word that is relatively new, the word Negro, a kind of nickname that grew out of European laziness, the inability or the lack of a desire to give Africans their proper identity. In the period when the Europeans had to justify the exploitation of Africa and the demeaning of a whole people, they systematically started the effort to read the African out of human human history.
A great deal of our ignorance of African history sits upon the old conservative racial discrimination and prejudice which we have had in Europe.
Basil Davidson is a British writer and historian on Africa.
States. It still sits upon the belief, perfectly unscientific, quite unbased in any scholarly discipline, that the Africans, that is to say, if you like, the Negroes, are people of some sort of inferiority to others, and therefore have not been able to develop in the same way. Now, you know the great myth of the colonial era. The great myth took the shape of saying that the Africans, the Negroes, are children, and because they are children, it said, failing to develop, we, the Europeans, you, the Americans, must go in there and show them the way they should go, civilize them, introduce them to the blessings of orderly life. One of the misunderstandings, you see, about Africa is the apparently primitive material nature of their civilization. You look at these people living in these villages and you wonder, what is their past? Do they have a past? What lies behind it all? They have nothing but a few straw buildings, nothing but a few cattle. It seems quite inconsiderable. The Dinka, for example, have no stone in their country. They have almost no metal. Half their country is underwater half the year. They cannot build and could never possibly build an imposing material civilization, but their achievement was, of course, to learn how to master their environment, and this they have done with quite outstanding success, so that the outside picture, the superficial picture, gives no indication at all of the depth of their culture. These are the people who have mastered the problems of taming this difficult, vast continent with all its extraordinarily great obstacles to living, its swamps, its deserts, its mountains, and its forests. The story of Africa over the last 2,000 years has been one of quite epic dimensions.
Africa. Endless deserts, scorching and windswept by day, bitterly cold at night. And the Sahara, the world's largest desert, a harsh, bleak expanse of land challenging anyone to cross.
All right. Anything? We're not going to watch all of it. Although I recommend you guys do it. It's called The History of the Negro People. And it's you saw the early videos, you see John Henry Clarke, but I think he produced. You see, they said he produced it, so I think I'm part of the production team at some point. So well done to that brother there. Anything anyone want to say? Let us know. Let us know. Let us know. Funny enough, I've just downloaded a video I did want us to see, where there's I think it's this one, but slight confrontation between people, non-black people, and John Henry Clarke in some kind of debate or something. I think it's this one. I could be wrong, but let me see if I found it. Download. Oh, no. Oh, if I drag it across, that might make it easier. Hold on. Yeah, does it show? Does it show? Probably not. Hold on. Ah, it's not gone. Wait, it's got the same name. Drag across. Replace. Oh, wait. Yeah, I swear it was really. Is it like a? Hold on. Let me not. Date modified. Yeah, 300. Yeah, the big one. It's that big one. All right, cool. Found it. So many videos. That's what happens. There you go.
To know what the discussion was to be, what it was about. He says, "Oh my God, you mean they're still discussing this stuff?" I said, "Yeah."
For those joining us, we're looking at the history of John Henrik Clarke, very important black historian, Pan-Africanist, to use history as a way to empower black people, people of African descent, Africans. And we're looking at some of his debates, talking tactics, and where he conducted himself throughout the years. And here's one where some of his famous quotes came from.
Of course, they're still discussing this stuff because this stuff is the stuff that scholarship is made of and that academic inquiry is made of. Tonight, we enter the world of scholars who have diametrically opposing views on the subject of the origins and foundations of what we know today as Western civilization. One school of thought is that it is distinctly African or Afro-Asian in origin. The other, that Western civilization in large measure is the bequest of ancient Greece. Make no mistake, this is not a mere difference of opinion in the ivory tower. The battle itself has become an allegory for something as important as the debate itself. Academic insurgents have breached the ramparts of the Academy's high priesthood, and the battle is as much for the authority to write history and for how to write history. Our task tonight is to ferret out the truth insofar as we can discern it, but more importantly, to question and challenge. And we have four incredible people with us tonight, and I'd like to introduce them to you and have them come to the stage as they're introduced. Already on stage is Professor John Henrik Clarke. They were standing for you, Dr. Clarke. Teacher, historian, writer, lecturer, John Henrik Clarke is a unique resource and a special institution in the African world. Beginning in his early years, Dr. Clarke studied the world history of African people and became a master teacher. He has authored and or edited more than 30 books, short stories, and pamphlets on African and African American history, and is Distinguished Professor Emeritus of African World History in the Department of Africana and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College. Professor John Henrik Clarke. I'd like to ask to the stage Dr. Martin Bernal.
We'll skip the intro so let's see if we can get to the. There we go. I think this is him starting. Let's take it back. There we go.
With anyone.
I would like them first to begin with their conclusions. They will have about no more than 5 minutes to summarize their major thrust this evening. Professor Clarke, we will start with you.
Yeah, this is the one, Kushti, where he debates, I think, 3 to 2 people at once.
Single point I wish to get across before we start anything. I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
Very good.
Shall we continue or what? I'm not clear now.
Go ahead, Dr. Clarke.
You, Trees?
Go ahead, Dr. Clarke.
Broadly speaking, honestly speaking, the book, Not Out of Africa, a good sophomore effort, is not really about not out of Africa. Last year, it was the bell curve. This year, it's not out of Africa. Next year, it'll be something else. This is part of a world war against the role of African people in the history of the world. If we began history, began mankind, how is it that the last branch of the human race to enter that arena, marked civilization, now think they brought civilization? Now, it is part of a war over and above Professor Lesterwitz's book and over and above her political naivete. Her naivete is about what is happening in the Western world. There was a recent book called The Tribes. It diagrammed every people, major people on the earth, searching for a piece of turf for themselves. It left out the African people because the other people, including Asian imperialists, have plans to take over Africa. There have been several articles in the New York Times advocating the recolonization of Africa. This book and other literature of this nature mean to prepare the world to accept a rationalization for the re-enslavement of Africa. Now, and when you deal with the black endorsers of the book, running dogs of the new imperialism, professional white hand kissers, and as Carlos Cook used to say, a disgrace to the skin they wear. These people, if I'm be so kind to call them that, are running from themselves and teaching us a lesson that we should have learned long ago. Sometimes white wannabes are more dangerous than whites. And sometimes they'll fight you harder to be accepted by whites. They are running from their own people and running from definition. Now, what we need to look at now is how Professor Lesterwitz neglected the white writers through history, the radical European writers who wrote positively of Africa and who identified the relationship of Africa to the ancient Greece. Now, if given time, and I probably won't be given it this evening, I can prove to you with your satisfaction, if you are listening, that Rome and Greece was not European creations. These were Mediterranean-inspired nations and couldn't be created by Europe because at the time there was no Europe. Huh? Huh? All right.
Thank you very much.
Shall I take it?
I now ask Professor Leftwitz to present her 5-minute conclusion. Can you hear me? Yes.
Well, let me just begin by saying what my book, Not Out of Africa, isn't about. It's not.
So this is the lady who wrote a book called Not Out of Africa. Yeah, she's going to explain what it was about.
Not an attack on Afrocentrism. If Afrocentrism means recognition of African achievements in the world, it doesn't seek to deprive Africans of their rightful heritage. Africans do not need Greece to have a cultural heritage. They have a rich cultural heritage. Egypt is just one part of it. They don't need Greece. I'm concerned because what is being offered in some quarters as African history is really a European myth, and thus instead of getting real information about Africa, what people are learning is something that's really 18th century French. It's Eurocentric, it's based on Greek and Roman myths. I do not myself think that one should do that, because Egypt itself is so fascinating, so rich. There is so much that you can learn and know, and that I myself, as a result of all this work that we have been doing for the last 4 years and more, have come to know and understand about Egypt. I would like to now spend a great deal of the rest of the time that I have learning about that, because it is so different. It's so different from what the Greeks thought that it was. Herodotus was very impressed by Egypt. He wanted to say that everything in Greece that he could think of came or had some connection with Egypt. He didn't really understand the depth and richness of Egypt, which went in directions way beyond what he knew from his own experience in Greece. So I am concerned about that in not...
Just going to skip some of this now, just before we come down. It was just brother.
Greek culture was merely a projection or an imitation of Egyptian or Semitic culture. It's clearly a very distinctive culture.
As well. We get time, definitely want to check out the full debate. We're just looking at John Henrik Clarke, who's, as Empress Christian says, he was taking on 3 people. Interesting, yeah.
Like art and architecture.
So let's see. Lord of the debate. Let's see his rebuttal. I just want to see anything. Hold on.
As a Baptist Sunday school teacher.
Oh, I'll go back. Right.
And I am eclectic, and I've been accused of that. But I think in these areas where there's so little information that one cannot follow the rigor of pursuing one particular discipline, like linguistics or something like that, one has to look across the board.
I was referring specifically to the scholarship of African scholars.
Yes, I mean, although I must confess that I came to them rather late on in my study, and to some extent I found that I had reinvented the wheel. That there was a great deal of what I had laboriously tried to assemble for myself had been assembled, and this was very striking in the case of scholars like Du Bois or Sinclair Drake, but also many of Sheikh Anta Diop and others provided extraordinarily useful avenues for me to pursue. I wouldn't call myself an Afrocentrist, except to the extent that I believe that Africans and peoples of African descent have played many significant roles in world history, and that these have been systematically denied by European and North American scholars in the 19th and 20th century. I think that the degree of racism in our society can hardly be overestimated. We all have it, and it's very, very difficult to see past it.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Clarke.
I came to this subject before I was 10 as a Baptist Sunday school teacher. I wanted to teach junior class in Sunday school, so I learned to read very early. What baffled me from the beginning was the Bible itself. I could not find my people in a book that's supposed to be about all mankind. And what called my attention to the neglect of Africa was the Sunday school lessons with all those white angels. And when they said God is love, God is kind, God is no respect of kith or kin, I kept wondering, why didn't he let at least 1 or 2 little brown or black angels sneak into heaven? So I began to suggest that somebody else had tampered with God's book in favor of somebody else, and that the Bible to a great extent was a rationale for European domination, but had been used as such. Then, coming to after leaving Georgia, after a white man that I'd worked for, if he's alive today, he's a liberal with a capital L. His name was Gagsteiner. I asked him about some books on the African people in ancient history. And in the language of the South, he let me down slow. I mean, he spoke kindly. He said, you know, John, I'm sorry that you came from a race that's made no history. But if you persevere, if you obey laws and study hard, you make history someday, and you personally might one day be a great Negro like Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was the one thing whites approved of at that time. All right, while doing chores at a local high school, holding the coat and the books.
Before I forget, we're gonna Booker T. Washington, very interesting. There's an audio book I'm gonna download. I recommend listening to it because Booker T. Washington was alive in slavery time and he documented it. And so it's good to hear like enslavement narratives. Very, very good thing to do. So at one point we'll listen to it. I think it helps ground of the day-to-day realities of what our ancestors went through. It's definitely an important thing. So let's do a few more minutes of this before we end the show.
The book, I opened a book called The New Negro, and I found an essay by a Puerto Rican of African descent, Arthur Schomburg. The essay was called The Negro Digs Up His Past. Now I knew I was not only older than slavery, I was older than my oppressor, and my oppressor was the last branch of the human race to enter that arena. Mock civilization. Don't get mad, get smart, prove me wrong. Now, in the old Harlem History Club, under Willis and Huggins, long since dead, John Jackson, who died only a few years ago, and we had to take up a collection to bury him, Charles Seifert, J. Rogers, under all of these teachers pointing me to good material, and Arthur Schomburg telling me, go study the history of your masters. Study the people who took you out of history. Then you'll understand your history. I started on an old chestnut, recently mentioned, H.G. Wells' Outline of History. It is still worth reading. It is a good basic outline. His basic facts are in order. When he tells you about the Crusades, he's not off one iota. But his interpretation is basically Eurocentric to the point of being a prejudiced document. Now, I was reading these kinds of books. I was reading Spingarn's Decline of the West when I was 18 years old. So I began to read European masterpieces, and I began to read European curiosity about Africa. Gerald Massey's 6th volume, Egypt, Light of the World, 2 volumes. Natural Genesis, 2 volumes. Book of the Beginning, 2 volumes. And I began to read Gerald Massey's attitude on religion and his idea that nearly European concepts of religion were stolen from outside of Europe. He was not a historian. He was not an Egyptologist. He was an agnostic, fighting the arrogance of the European of that day. See, the History Club led me to not only reading masterpieces by white radical writers who set the black radical writers in motion. A whole lot of claims blacks did not make until they saw the documents in works written by Europeans. And these works written by Europeans, what black had the time and the money to sit down and do a 6-volume work?
Well, Dr. Clarke, I would like you to hold it right there. Yes, thank you. Hold it right there.
We got right there. But definitely recommend you Google YouTube, brother John Henry Clarke. We dedicate today's show to him. He was born on the 1st of January. It's definitely a good debate you should watch. But yeah, so I mean, brother IC3, brother Kel, anything you'd like to add? We are getting towards the end of the show for it. A very, very quick show.
Yeah, just study the mannerism of our great lecturers, man. Because we're in these situations all the time.
Yes.
So it's good to adapt the etiquette to how they conformed and how they articulated themselves under circumstances. He done something very good, great political science when he says that some of us act more leaning towards white supremacy than the whites themselves. And when you understand that code, we get it. You have to balance it. You know what I mean? But we understand that the ones who formulated it are the problem. But I get that political science, and also understanding the terms, the logical term that's put on us as well. I like the way how is it Ozzy Davis broke down the concept of the Negro, and understanding that so it can be used for us as a way to kind of demonstrate, or even use it in a political way. So understanding the logical terms and also words that can unify us. That's what I've learned, and that's what we should learn from Dr. Henry Clarke.
Nice, very nice. Brother IC3, any kind of last words or anything you want to bring up in the last 4 minutes?
No, it's good. It's good. Much good food for thought. And it reminds us of how the battle against white supremacy and how the white people, they were so pushing. Say, well, it's almost like they were saying, "Oh, we're not racist. We're not racist." That's what I said. Oh, don't misunderstand what we're saying. We're not doing this. But yet they are, because that's the system, that's the structure. Yes, so let this year be a good year. I think it's going to be a good year, and we're going to make some good progress.
That's right. All right, family. Well, like I said, guys, we'll check you next week. Feel free to invite friends. Any topics you want to let us know. But I end with the culture of saying Black Betterment to everyone. Black Betterment, brother Carl. Black Betterment, brother IC3.
Yes, yes. Yeah, how about Black Betterment and reparations?
There you go.
Have you done a show on reparations?
I have, but we can always do more. We can always do more. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, that'll be good.
Yeah.
Do more. You can't do enough because, like I said in the chat, that's the only legitimate black business is the business of reparations. All else really is white people's benevolence, directly or indirectly.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
reparations is the only thing that is direct.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we bid Black Betterment to Sister Kushti, Black Betterment to everyone listening, as well as everyone in future videos on the streaming. Please, when you get time, Google John Henry Clarke. Studies mannerisms, a very good ancestor there. Until next week, Black Betterment.
Black Betterment.